Hi, I'm the Moonlit Page Turner. Grab your tea, grab your treat, and let's talk books. For this month's reads, I have two books for you. One is fiction, one is nonfiction, and we are traveling to the country of Bolivia. Now, Bolivia is not our first South American country, but it is unique that it is going to involve all the countries around it. So, Bolivia, again, in South America, it is landlocked between 5 other countries, and this will become important with both our first read, which is Tree Girl, and that is our fiction read. That's actually going to deal with Guatemala. And then our second read is Let Me Speak, and that's our nonfiction book, and it is about the mines in Bolivia. And Bolivia was a part of the Incan Empire before the Spanish came, and then they took over. And then in 1824, Simon Bolivier, he's from Venezuela. He helped actually free Bolivia, and then they become their own country in 1825. So they do have a rich history. They have a lot of rich resources as well, which is why the Spanish were so held to hold on to them, because they have silver, tin, and zinc, and that will become really important when we talk about our second read. Before we get into this month's reads, let's get into our treat. Now, I went not sweet this time because we've been doing a lot of sweet treats. So this is actually, these are empanadas, and this is an empanada de queso. So the recipe that I will link below has a whole bunch of different types of empanadas. And I went with a cheese empanada, and it was interesting the fact that you whip egg whites, and then you mix it with queso fresco. And I actually added black beans to the recipe too, because there wasn't a whole lot of flavor. I'm missing some of my spices with some of these recipes, so I'm starting to add a little bit of my own flavor to them. So you can see a little bit of the black beans, and then it's egg whites and white cheese, so there's not that much in there. I was also adding some hot spice to it as well, which I felt like, again, it needed a little bit of flavor, but it's a great treat. It's really handy. You can just take it and go. The first book that I'm going to talk about is Tree Girl, and this is by Ben Milkaelsen. And you might think, that does not sound like a Spanish inherited name, because it's not. His parents are actually Dutch. He was born in Bolivia. He lives in the United States now, but he is Bolivian born. This book is actually not about Bolivia. This is like a middle grade read, and it is actually about the Guatemalan genocide. So this book may traumatize you a little bit. It's really well written. I definitely ugly cried when I read this, because you're dealing with a young girl who grows up she's one of the indigenous people in Guatemala, and there is a Guatemalan civil war as well as some other influences. She sees her family first taken. Her brother gets taken by the army, and then we never find out what happens to him. So I'm telling you that beforehand. It is kind of a spoiler, but you will never find out what happens to her brother. So that I kept looking and kept expecting it to come up later. No. And then her family is killed, as well as a lot of the people around her, and she has to survive. So this book was, again, it's about a really important topic. It was a really hard read because I got really emotional when reading it. It's beautifully written. It does deal with sexual assault as well, so and rape. So that is the trigger warning for that. It is a middle school grade book, so please take care when reading this. I've said this before with other books, but a lot of these books do end up getting kind of banned because of the subject matter. They feel like it's not appropriate for the grade level. We'll stop writing about it when these stuff stop happening. So it is important to know that this is a part of our history and something that continues today. So if you don't know a lot about the Guatemalan genocide, I would suggest looking into it. This book is fiction, but it is based on a true story. So Milkaelsen talks about at the end that there is a girl that he does base this story on. He is not going to name who it is for her own safety, because she is still in danger. So this, again, really, really important topic. So the Guatemalan genocide takes place between 1960 and 1996. That's 36 years. And this one is more towards the later end. This is focused more in the early 80s. And so there is the Civil War, there is the mass killing of the Mayan indigenous people. And it is estimated that more than 150,000 of them were killed. So really, really important topic, well written. Please take care when reading this book. The next story, fiction, nonfiction. This is Let Me Speak, and this is Domitila Barrios de Chungara, but it's really written by the other writer on here, which is Moema Viezzer. And so Viezzer saw Domitila speak in 1975 at the International Women's Tribune in Mexico, and she was really inspired by what she has to say. That is also in the book. And then she goes and she communicates with Domitila, and she collects other pieces of information, letters, interviews, and things, and she puts it together in this book. So this book is not, although it's her words, not really written by Domitila. It's kind of almost like the autobiography of Malcolm X was not an autobiography. Domitila, is part of the Housewives Committee of Minors, and she does this to kind of get a better life for her husband, for herself, or for the people around her. She lives a very, very tragic life. She was in extreme poverty when she was younger, which actually led to the death of one of her younger sisters because Domitila wanted to go to school, and so she left her sisters unsupervised, and that actually led to the death of one of them because they were in extreme poverty and they were hungry and they ate something that they weren't supposed to. Her life does not get easier. When she is pregnant, her husband goes to his family's house because his parents are sick and dying, and the miners kick her out of her house because in these mining camps, you do not own your house. You are there renting it only if you work there. And so because her husband was out of town, they tried to kick her out, and even though she was visibly pregnant. The neighbors kind of fought back a little bit and allowed her to stay. So her community was really supportive of her. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that happens. She lives a very, very tragic life. She turns to Marxism a little later on with some of the education and stuff that she's having. She gets arrested and beaten so bad that she loses her child because she was pregnant there as well. So this book was also kind of a difficult read. I did end up taking a little bit of a break from the series after reading these two books because I needed a little bit of an emotional break. So this book I wasn't super excited about. In all honesty, it's not written well, it's not put together well. She tries to put it together chronologically. I felt like it wasn't successful, and I felt like Domitila doesn't learn any lessons about her life. All of these things that happened to her, she keeps going. Even to the detriment of her own family. So this book was a 2-star read for me. I was struggling kind of all the way through to kind of finish this book. I feel like people like this are really important to their society. She meets, after she goes to prison and gets let out, she has to flee her city. And she goes to live in this farming community, and she's like, oh, I've never thought about these people that also live in my country. And she never really thinks about them again either. So there, to me, were no lessons really learned here. She's not currently alive. Again, she lived in extreme poverty for most of her life. It also felt like in this book that her and her husband did not really like each other. The story of how they get together is sad, but a little Marx Brothers-y, or the Three Stooges, because she has to flee her father's house, and then he was a police officer and he finds her, and that's how they end up meeting, and then they end up getting married. So that was I feel like I could see it in the movie of people running around and stuff like that, but her life altogether was pretty sad. So I do not recommend this book, but if you're looking for more nonfiction about life in Bolivia, there's not a whole lot out there. So I was kind of stuck reading this one. Hey, thanks for stopping by. Next month, we are traveling to Bosnia and Herzegovina. If you're interested in what we have read or what we are reading in the future, please visit us on Goodreads and Instagram. See you then.